Mellenthin, and I am so happy to be joining you this morning. Happy holidays to everybody. And today I want to talk about not just my upcoming conference that's coming up, but I want to talk about disruptive behavior disorders and specifically the impact of oppositional defiant disorder and conduct disorder and how this impacts children and families. And one of the things that I've noticed in all my years of doing this, so I've been a play therapist and a child therapist for well over 20 years now. And a lot of times when kids struggle with behaviors, that becomes the main focus of therapy, which on the surface, it makes sense, right? We want to change the distressing behaviors that are driving people crazy around them. But what happens when we only focus on the behavior is you miss the kid. And it's really easy to get kind of caught up in kind of playing that whack-a-mole as a therapist where, you're trying to do all these different things, teaching coping skills, giving, words for our feelings, helping manage behaviors, right? And it can feel like you're a never-ending, like putting out fires. And those sometimes can actually be really protective behaviors of the child, because if we are caught up in the smoke and mirrors of the behaviors and the disruption and distress that causes everybody else around them, what we're not focused on is what's going on in here for the child. And it's easy to get stuck in the content. It's easy to get stuck in the smoke and mirrors of the behaviors. And what happens when we do that, though, is oftentimes what's feeding and fueling these behaviors gets missed. And one of the things that we're going to be really diving into in my upcoming conference in February is really looking at how attachment ruptures and trauma are oftentimes at the root cause of many of the disruptive behavior disorders that we see in our clinical work. And if we're only treating the child and only doing individual treatment, and we're not taking a systemic look at other environmental causes, other systemic issues, other attachment injuries that are happening, you can teach as many coping strategies as you want, but it doesn't create a safe environment for the child, inside or out. And so one of the things that we need to do is be really curious with our clients, be really curious with the caregivers. Who is in this child's life? What happens? What's the response when they act out? For some kids in my clinical work, if they cause a big blow up and a big scene, or they do something horribly humiliating or obnoxious, but then they get all this individualized attention, even if it's negative attention, sometimes that reinforcement can be totally worth it. However, it creates this catch-22, right, for caregiver and child of, I need to be with you. I need to parent you. I need to help stop or tame some of these great big behaviors that are happening. But if it's getting reinforced over and over, it's a hard cycle to stop. Oftentimes what we see in families where, a child is struggling with a disruptive behavior disorder is the parents or caregivers really need some extra support in their world and how they're parenting. Oftentimes parenting is really harsh or inconsistent. They may have multiple caregivers, children that we know that are in child welfare settings, oftentimes are bounced from home to home to home. And so again, this idea of safety is sometimes elusive, and a child can't give up their protective behaviors if there's not enough safety in their environment that they can trust that they can be safe and be seen and be held and really be able to be their true self in there. So what can we do as therapists? What can we do as child specialists? What can we do as parents? And one of the things that I find is such a crucial aspect of this is actually working with the parent just as much as, if not more, than you are with the child. Parents need our support. Parents need to have tools. Oftentimes they need parenting support. And maybe the parenting that, strategies that have worked with their other children aren't working with this particular kid. And so they may need some help navigating this minefield. Oftentimes, as a parent, speaking from experience here, being a parent as well as a professional, parenting is hard. Even on the best of days, it can be really hard. And when you have been parenting a child that's had these out of control behaviors for an extended period of time, it's not uncommon to hear a parent say to me, I love this kid and I can't stand them. Or I love this kid and I don't like them. I don't like me. I don't like who I become when I'm with them. And these statements are indicative of the just level of pure exhaustion that the parent has been experiencing. And it's also a big red flag of how many attachment ruptures, and the depth of attachment rupture that may have happened within the parent-child relationship. And so these are clues to us that we need to really be looking at, not just decreasing the outbursts, decreasing the unwanted behaviors, but really focusing on repairing and building and creating a sense of security within the home environment whenever that's possible. Because what we find is, as repair happens, as a sense of safety and security can be developed within caregiver and child, a lot of times that takes away the need for the behavior. Again, if we're kind of looking at this in terms of some of these really out of control behaviors can actually be protective behaviors of the child or learned behaviors. And when we can help repair the environment and the relationships within the environment so the child can experience a sense of felt safety, they may not need these behaviors as much as they did before. And so some of the ways that we can do this is by really slowing down the process, first of all, which can be hard, right? There's a lot of pressure on us as clinicians. Fix the kid, fix the behaviors, fix the problem. They're driving the teachers crazy. They're scaring their kids, the other kids in the classroom. They're wreaking havoc in their home environments. Like, fix this kid. And we actually don't have magic wands. I think if anybody invented that, we'd be so excited, right? But we've got to slow down the process. It's important to build a relationship with the caregiver. And we have to build a therapeutic alliance with the caregivers. Because if we can't expect the least powerful, most vulnerable member of the family system to be the change agent. That is an unrealistic expectation to give to a child, especially a young child. But really, when we think about it, no child has control or power to change their environment, really. But the adults in their lives do. And that's who we really need to be connecting with, bringing them into the play therapy process and really working on repairing relationships so that we can then address the behaviors. Because without co-regulation happening between child and parent, again, a child can't regulate themselves. And so when they're engaging in these big outbursts, these big externalizations, what that means is they're dysregulated. And so again, we need to pull in that caregiver and teach them how to be a regulatory factor instead of sometimes stirring it up just as much. And then we can work on building and creating security, as I talked about before. So some of my favorite tips and my favorite tools and my favorite interventions we're going to be covering in the 2-day conference. But to give you a sneak peek right now, you do not need to have the biggest and best playroom. You do not need to have the most expensive toys. Sometimes the more simple tools that we have as clinicians can be the most powerful. So one of my favorite ways to start introducing, I'm just going to take a quick drink. One of my favorite ways to start introducing systemic-based play therapy with caregiver, with children, with siblings, if they have them, because everybody is impacted by the acting out. So we need to actually be working on healing all different parts of the relationship and parts of the family system and home environment. So all you need for this intervention is 6 balloons and a Sharpie. So cheap and easy, my friends. And what you're going to have them do is they're going to blow up the balloons. And this is my family self-esteem game that is available in, I think, in my workbook. And if you click on the QR code or use the code Clair24, I think that there is some awesome discounts today too happening with that. But the family self-esteem game is such a fun way to start giving everybody an opportunity to have a voice, to engage in something fun and delightful together, to let go of the stress that they have been experiencing as a system, and to really begin finding each other underneath the behaviors. So what you're going to do is invite the family to blow up the 6 balloons. You're going to have everybody stand in a circle, and you're going to write a question, 1 question per balloon. So my favorite questions to ask is, what is something that you've done that you're proud of? Say something nice about somebody else in the room. What do you do to help yourself feel better? What do you like about yourself? Tell about a time you helped somebody else feel better. And so we're working with building self-esteem, because that usually has taken a big hit by the time somebody comes to our office. And we also want the family to be able to see each other, like truly see one another, again, under the behaviors. So how you play the game is you're going to stand in a circle and take 2 balloons at a time, and they're going to play hot potato with the balloons. Okay, so you're trying to keep 2 balloons bouncing up in the air, and it usually starts off pretty polite, and then pretty soon there's shrieks of laughter and people are diving over furniture and all this fun, great big play. And when 1 balloon drops to the floor, everybody stops. You read the question on the balloon, and everybody takes a turn answering it. Then you're going to discard the balloon and go back to a great big play. So this is the dance of play therapy when we're working with big behaviors. Great big behaviors usually have great big feelings, which need great big play. So we're going to do great big play, come in and process, slow it down, quiet it down, allow for connection, and then not keep them in vulnerability for too long. Then you're going to go back to great big play. And so you keep playing this game until all the balloons have been answered. And again, everybody gets to have a turn. And this is where we can plant some seeds and really be curious with our clients what they like the most. If there's something they learned about one another that they didn't know before. And planting seeds of connection for future play-based experiences together. So I hope that this gives you a tool, helps you kind of reframe some of these struggles that we're working with as clinicians. I invite you to come play. We're going to spend 2 days in Mission Bay. I mean, you can't get a better playground. The beach is literally steps from the hotel, my friends. Like, you don't want to miss this. Come play with me in San Diego. And, I look forward to seeing you at my future events. If I can be a help or resource in any way, you are welcome to come. Find me on social media, shoot me an email, and I will look forward to seeing you at my next events. If you have questions, comments, click the QR code that's up there. And everybody be safe out there in this wild wackadoodle weather that we're having. And I hope to see you soon. Thanks, everyone. I'm